With all this talk about WWE under Triple H, what sort of impact this may have on the business as a whole, I said the other night that it's like rolling out the welcome mat now, or the welcome back mat, to talent that are in other places like AEW, who may have had reservations about working for Vince McMahon, or they did work for Vince and they left because they didn't want to work with him anymore because they didn't get along well, or he didn't, see anything in them, whatever the case may be. A lot of people who left had success under Triple H, though, in NXT. A lot of those people liked Triple H. Maybe now they would be more open to coming back and working for him. Well, Tony Khan has heard a lot of this chatter, and he told Busted Open Radio this week that he is amused by it. He thinks the changes are going to be positive for the fans overall, but he is a little amused, he said, that people think these changes are going to magically alter the wrestling landscape. He said, "I've got people signed here for 5 years, and people think that just because the CEO, chairman, the head of creative, that those people changed in the competition, that people I have 5-year contracts with are going to magically switch teams. Good luck with that. Adam Cole is signed until 2027 now. I wouldn't expect to see him going anywhere anytime soon. Malachi Black has almost 5 years left on his deal. I wouldn't expect him going anywhere anytime soon either. Just because these guys had some success under a previous administration somewhere else, they are not magically going to be going anywhere. Those are 2 people I really like just as examples of people who have worked under that previous administration. I'm very amused by that. That is a narrative that I see so-called wrestling writers pushing every day. It is pretty amusing." The real news here is that Adam Cole has another 5 years left on his AEW deal, and Malachi Black has almost 5 years left on his. We didn't know that before, now we do. I don't know if Adam Cole and Malachi Black wanted people to know that, but now we know what their contract status is. Bryan Danielson was back in the ring on Wednesday. He lost to Main Event Garcia, who won with an assist from Jake Hager. This is all going to lead to Danielson against Jericho at All Out, but first, Jericho has an interim championship match with Jon Moxley in 2 weeks where I would expect Danielson to get involved. I would expect him to cost Jericho in some way. Getting Danielson back is huge for Tony Khan because all the injuries that they've been plagued by. He's a big name they needed to have back. Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly, they're going to be on television this Wednesday. So we'll see what they do on TV this week. I don't believe they're medically cleared yet. CM Punk was walking around Comic-Con this week like the Walking Wounded. He had a walking boot on, and he's been relearning how to walk. He shattered his foot. He's said that he's been relearning how to walk. The fact that they're doing the Jericho match with Moxley on television, that tells me they think they'll have Punk back in time for Chicago. Otherwise, it would have made more sense to just wait and do Jericho and Moxley at All Out. Everybody is wondering where the hell's MJF. What I think they're doing with MJF, it's 2 things. Here's what's going on with MJF. First of all, they're waiting for CM Punk to come back because when MJF returns, he's going to go after the AEW World title. So they need to get their champion back. He's not going to go after the interim champion or anything like that. They need to have their champion back before they start building to anything with MJF. But here's the other thing. We are also coming up on a very important period for AEW in the fall, where their television ratings are going to be very important when it comes to negotiating their next television deal next year. We're not too far off from that period where they're going to have to be negotiating or renegotiating their television rights fees, whether they stay with Warner or if they go somewhere else. So I think holding back on MJF for the fall TV season, that's another reason why we have not seen him back yet. MJF is Tony Khan's ace in the hole. The MJF angle is their best shot at a hot angle to try to pop some big numbers in the fall. I know some of the AEW diehards, they don't want to hear this, but AEW has a problem. AEW has cooled off a lot from this time last year. And it's understandable. Last year at this time, the rumor mill was going nuts. Remember where we were a year ago this time? This is right around the time in July when the stories broke about CM Punk and Bryan Danielson being in discussions, possibly signing with AEW. These were major stories last summer. This is all anybody was talking about. Then they had the first dance at the United Center. Then they had that great All Out pay-per-view, and Danielson debuted. Adam Cole debuted on the same night. That led right into the first Arthur Ashe Stadium show with 20,000 people, and the match between Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson. AEW had all of these things happening at once, one right after the other, and I think we all knew they were not going to be able to sustain that level of interest and excitement, because at some point, you've now signed every major free agent that there is. There's nobody left. And now you can't just rely on who's Tony Khan's going to be, who's going to be his next big mystery signing. What's the next big Tony Khan special announcement that he's going to hype up? Now you have to use those people in a way that's going to keep the fans interested in coming back and watching your show. Their television ratings right now, they're still keeping the TBS executives very happy. I don't know about the Rampage numbers on TNT, because Rampage is they've fallen off a cliff, but they just got done with 2 weeks of Fyter Fest. You compare the numbers for last year's Fyter Fest to this year's. I don't know if anybody went back and looked at those numbers. Last year, they did over 1 million viewers for week 1, and they did over 1.1 million for week 2. This year, both weeks were a little over 900,000. And the all-important demos that we hear about, they were down a lot compared to last year. So when you're heading into a negotiation for your TV rights, and you're hoping to double or triple the amount of money that you're being paid, there's no positive way to spin that. That just doesn't look good. Because they'll look at that and go, yeah, you're still doing good, but how come you were doing this a year ago and now you're doing that? Tony Khan is going to be able to get a TV deal. I'm not really worried about that. If you're an AEW fan and you don't know what's going to happen, he'll get a TV deal. That's not the question. The question isn't, can AEW stay on television? The question is, will they be able to get more money? WWE consistently, despite all of their shitty television, they consistently escalate their TV rights fees every year. Or every new contract, it just goes up. I mean, they have escalators in their contracts, so the way it's structured, if it's a 5-year deal, each year they make a little more money. But then when that expires and they sign a new deal, they're always making more money. They're always making more than they did for the deal that came before it. Can AEW do the same? We don't know. This is the first time that Tony Khan is going to be heading into a negotiation like this where he's already coming off of a television contract. They've never done this before. I know they've been besieged by injuries this summer that they did not have last year, and even keeping those numbers above 900,000 is an accomplishment. 900,000 is not an audience to sneeze at. But the numbers are down from where they were before. When they get Kenny Omega back, when they get CM Punk back, when they get MJF back on TV, the thing to watch, do the numbers go back up? Or do they stay flat?